on the moon. Robot surgeons made their debut at Paris hospitals. Cuba's worker bees boost the thriving honey business. A Hong Kong beekeeper harvests hives barehanded. WHO says DR Congo's Ebola outbreak is no international emergency. Qatar seeks to transform diabetes care with a whole nation project. In Azerbaijan, health rhymes with crude oil baths. SpaceX carries out first commercial launch. Plus, traditional comics thrive amid the world of digital technology. Hello everyone, I am Rose Papa Angeles, bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Israel's attempt at a moon landing failed at the last minute on Thursday when the craft suffered an engine failure as it prepared to land and apparently crashed onto the lunar surface. Project originator and major backer Morris Kahn said in a live videocast from Mission Control near Tel Aviv, they didn't make it, but definitely tried. He said the achievement of getting to where they got is really tremendous and thinks they can be proud.
This is space. Space has got its dangers. It's a frontier that's very difficult, but I think we accepted the challenge. I'm glad we did it. We chose to dream, we chose to do, and we were not afraid.
During the broadcast, control staff could be heard saying that engines meant to slow the craft's descent and allow a soft landing had failed and contact with it had been lost. One unidentified staffer said, quote, "We are on the moon, but not in the way we wanted." Another said we are the 7th country to orbit the moon and the 4th to reach the moon's surface. Only Russia, the United States, and China have made the 239,000-mile journey and landed safely on the moon. From the control room where he had been watching along with U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "If at first you don't succeed, you try again." He said, quote, "We reached the moon, but would like to land more comfortably. That will be for the next attempt." The 1,290-pound unmanned spacecraft named BAREHANDED, which means Genesis in Hebrew, resembles a tall, oddly shaped table with round fuel tanks under the top. Israeli NGO Space IL and state-owned Israel Aerospace Industries, the project's two main partners, have described it as the world's first spacecraft built in a non-governmental mission. Khan, a philanthropist and chairman of Space IL, put up $40 million of the project's $100 million budget. According to the IAI website, other partners who joined later are from the private sector, government, and academia. Just before the landing attempt, Netanyahu said that he was thinking about initiating a national space project. His office said in a statement the country's President Reuven Rivlin viewed the broadcast with 80 middle school space buffs at his official Jerusalem residence. Although the journey is 384,000 kilometers, BAREHANDED will have traveled a total of 6.5 million kilometers due to a series of orbits. It was launched from Cape Canaveral in Florida on February 22nd with a Falcon 9 rocket from Elon Musk's private U.S.-based SpaceX company. Its speed has reached 10 kilometers per second or 36,000 kilometers per hour. The one-way trip was to have included an attempt to measure the lunar magnetic field, which would have helped understanding of the moon's formation. The Assistance Publique Hospital in Paris has recently acquired 9 robots to assist surgeons during complicated operations. But despite being welcomed by surgeons, certain critics are highlighting the dangers and costs of such technology.
Absolument, c'est un outil chirurgicale pour faciliter notre vie, le chirurgien des gens, au niveau d'ergonomie. Donc on fait la chirurgie mini-invasive au bout de 4 heures, 5 heures. Il faut qu'on prenne des anti-inflammatoires pendant 2-3 jours. On ne peut pas enchaîner des opérations une après l'autre. Vous restez, vous êtes assis, vous voyez en 3D, donc vous faites les manipulations standards de votre doigt. Il transmet le mouvement des mains à l'intérieur de l'enfant.
C'est-à-dire qu'en celluliochirurgie, on a des instruments qui sont dans l'axe. Comme je vous montre, par exemple, si vous regardez sur ma main, on peut avoir une pince qui va tourner dans un axe fixe en rotation, alors qu'avec le robot, les instruments qu'on va utiliser, on va pouvoir faire des mouvements d'amplitude beaucoup plus importante qui nous permettent de disséquer, de toucher les tissus, de couper, d'opérer en fait en faisant des mouvements beaucoup plus amples et donc de faciliter le geste chirurgical. Et là, moi j'ai vu un patient hier en consultation avec ses parents, un petit garçon de 8 ans que je vais opérer bientôt au robot, en leur expliquant, bah voilà, on fait de la chirurgie mini-invasive et on s'aide du robot pour faire cette chirurgie. Et les parents étaient très contents et le petit garçon a posé plein de questions. Il avait les yeux qui brillaient, ah, un robot. Donc non, les patients sont partants, tout à fait.
Aujourd'hui, la robotique chirurgicale, au niveau mondial, est portée par un acteur qui est quasiment en situation de monopole. Il a de manière extrêmement pertinente, développer son modèle économique, sauf que derrière, ça donne des surcoûts significatifs à l'utilisation du robot. Si je suis dans le contexte français, utiliser un robot par rapport à une méthode traditionnelle, c'est d'emblée un surcoût. Le surcoût. Qui est le responsable s'il y a un problème? C'est le fabricant, c'est l'opérateur, c'est l'organisme propriétaire en charge notamment des conditions de maintenance.
In the floral valleys of Cuba's Matanzas province, old-fashioned farming means bees can swarm without the threat of pesticides that have decimated populations across the world. Life is sweet for Cuba's winged wonders, and Europe's honey lovers are catching on. Surveying a lush mountain valley east of Havana where his bees are thriving, Rogelio Marcelo Fundora says the bee is made neither for urban areas nor rural areas. It is made for the mountains. 51-year-old Fundora is a mechanical engineer by trade. His 54-year-old brother Santiago Esteban is a teacher. But both have become Cuba's best-known beekeepers by passion, owning 600 hives in the valley. Santiago, his face covered by a black net to avoid stings while bees swarmed in agitation as he manipulated a hive, said in this idyllic valley a few hours' drive from the capital, last year we produced 80 tons of honey. Shrinking bee populations around the world have caused scientists and conservationists to sound the alarm over the effects of intensive agricultural disease and pesticides. But not in Cuba, a communist-run island nation that has become a kind of apicultural paradise thanks to the purity of its countryside. That environmental integrity dates back to Cuba's crippling economic crisis of the 1990s, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, which once provided the island with thousands of tons of pesticides, fertilizers, and herbicides. Deprived of that support, Cuba had no choice but to develop natural alternatives. In the process, it reduced to almost zero the use of chemicals, so harmful to bee population and the quality of their honey. Average production is 112 pounds of honey per hive, a level considered high. However, the Fundora brothers, considered the nation's beekeeper kings, show yields of up to 160 kilos of honey per hive, triple the national average. Santiago said there's no miracle, just a lot of work. It's endless work to change out the queen, select the bees.
Que no usamos ningún tipo de químico a la hora de fumigar los apiarios, de chapearlos. No usamos ningún otro tipo de enfermedad, no tenemos ningún otro tipo de enfermedad y por lo tanto no usamos ningún antibiótico. Es una miel realmente limpia.
Still on buzzing news, high up in the hills above Hong Kong, Yip Ki Hock uses nothing but his bare hands to remove a honey-filled nest of swarming bees, a remarkable skill he learned after the hardship of China's famine years. While most new beekeepers buy insects from those with already established colonies, Yip prefers a more organic method, trekking into the hills and catching wild bees using skills he developed through trial and error from the age of 7. This 62-year-old effortlessly moves through bush and dense thickets far from the official hiking trails and pauses at a hole in the hillside he knows will contain a bee colony. Lighting 5 incense sticks to placate the bees, he waits for the smoke to take effect and then reaches into the hole, removing chunks of the hive along with handfuls of bees. Remarkably, he is only stung twice. The trick, he explained, is to remove as much of the hive as possible without killing or losing the vital queen. He said if you wear gloves, then you don't know how much strength you're using. If you use too much strength and accidentally kill the queen, it's very troublesome. It'll be very hard to take the hive back. Moving slowly and carefully, he blows on the hive to herd the bees into a wire cage covered with a white drawstring bag. He searches for the queen as stragglers buzz around him, a crucial part of the operation as the other bees in the hive are fiercely attracted to her. Without the queen, they will get angry and go looking for her everywhere. If they can find her, they will fly right back out of the cage. They'll fly around everywhere to find her and start stinging like crazy, he said. Although he was once stung more than 200 times when he lost a queen during an extraction, Yip says he has no need for gloves or other protective gear. Back at his farm, Yip uses wire to attach the honeycomb to wooden frames, which are then slotted into wooden crates. Then he pulls out handfuls of bees from the drawstring bag and places them gently in their new home. Yip generally collects honey 3 times a year from over 200 hives, extracting the golden liquid by spinning each frame in a metal drum.
因為舊年嗰啲山竹颱風影響到咯，太犀利，將嗰啲花草樹木全部打到超過一半以上。
Coming up, WHO says DR Congo's Ebola outbreak is no international emergency. Qatar seeks to transform diabetes care with a whole nation project. In Azerbaijan, health rhymes with crude oil baths. SpaceX carries out first commercial launch. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will be right back.
This famous rock formation is a great place to witness sunrise and sunsets. You can set up a picnic blanket and hang out with your friends or family here at the beach. For more stuff like this, tune in to ABC Digital Nest. I'm Rio, and I'm 1 with 25.
Welcome back. You're watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. The World Health Organization said Friday that the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo does not currently constitute an international health emergency, even though the number of cases is on the rise in some areas.
The emergency committee has come to the conclusion that the current outbreak does not constitute a public health emergency of international concern. And I have accepted their advice.
It is the second time that the TEDROS has called a meeting of the UN Health Agency Emergency Committee. In October, the organization's expert had also said the Ebola situation was very worrying, but did not constitute an international emergency. Committee Chief Robert Stephan on Friday said although there was great concern about some rising numbers in some regions, the outbreak has not spread internationally. Stephan added despite the length of the outbreak, it would be no additional benefit in declaring it an international emergency, as excellent work is being done on the ground by WHO and many partner organizations. But he called for a redoubling of efforts to detect and identify cases and follow up all contacts. Tedros urged the international community to step up its financial commitment to ending the outbreak. He said, "We cannot intensify our efforts if we don't have enough funds. The current funding gap has meant that we have had to slow down preparedness activities in neighboring countries." Tedros said the total funding gap stood at $104 million, 92 million euros as of July.
There is a concern about funding. The message is funds are now needed to avoid a public health emergency of international concern.
The DR Congo declared a 10th outbreak of Ebola in 40 years last August in northeastern North Kivu province before the virus spread into the neighboring Ituri region. The epicenter of the outbreak was first located in the rural area of Mangina, but then switched to the town of Beni in a region where mobility is high. Local organizations said that the number of deaths from the disease is rising. According to the latest WHO data from April 9, since the start of the outbreak, the number of confirmed or probable cases stands at 1,186, of which 751 were fatal. An earlier tally had put the death toll at 690. The fight against the disease has been hampered in recent weeks by clashes between armed groups. Furthermore, there is some resistance within communities to preventive measures, care facilities, and safe burials. Tedros also said communities needed to get involved in the fight against the disease. Quote, "Without it, we can't stop the outbreak. We have made progress in recent weeks through dialogue and negotiation." Unquote. In an unremarkable office in a Doha hospital, a study is taking place which could transform the way Qatar deals with one of its most persistent health issues, diabetes. A small team led by Professor Khalid Hussein has since last year been entering youngsters aged up to 18 with diabetes into a nationwide database, something he claims is unique in the region and possibly the world. The aim? To work out how many children in the tiny Gulf Emirate are suffering from the chronic disease, to pinpoint the type and to tweak treatment accordingly.
The aim is to work out what type of diabetes these children have. Because by understanding the different types of diabetes, we can actually make a difference to the lives of the patients.
Diabetes, a disease where body blood sugar levels are too high, is common across the globe. The World Health Organization says the number of people with the disease rose from 108 million in 1980 to 422 million in 2014. The Gulf region, Qatar included, is no exception. Poor diets, sugary drinks, and lack of exercise, along with interfamily marriages and genetics, have all been cited as reasons behind the prevalence of diabetes in the region. A 2017 WHO study estimated 72% of Qatari adults are currently overweight and 34% are living with obesity. Professor Hussein's study hopes to determine the overall rates of diabetes in Qatar and to establish the breakdown between types 1 and 2. With type 1 generally diagnosed during childhood, the body destroys cells in the pancreas which create insulin, the hormone that controls blood sugar levels. In type 2, caused by lifestyle and genetics, the body makes some insulin but not enough. The second form of the disease correlates highly with obesity and can over time lead to blindness, kidney damage, and heart disease or stroke. Researchers at Weill Cornell Medicine predict type 2 diabetes in Qatar will jump from around 17% of the population now to around 24% by 2050. Hussein says as many as 1,200 children with diabetes, Qataris and expats, are expected to take part in the project, with the first findings expected to be published sometime in July. Ever since Soviet times, people have been flocking to the small Azerbaijan town of Naftalan to immerse themselves in local crude oil, Azerbaijan's black gold, reputed for its therapeutic effects. Immersed up to her neck in a dark viscous liquid, Sofia smiles in a delight, confident that the faded substance will cure her painful condition. Sofia, a Russian woman in her 60s, has traveled to Azerbaijan, northwestern city of Naftalan, in the hope that crude oil baths at a local sanitarium will end her years of suffering from polyarthritis, a disease affecting the joints. Her naked body dipped in oil heated to just about body temperature lasts 10 minutes, after which an attendant scrapes the brown oil off her skin and sends her into a shower. The native of Russia's Tatarstan region said she and her friends have long dreamed of coming for treatment in Naftalan.
А Нафталане я слышала очень много, и мы давно мечтали приехать сюда с подружки. Вот, наконец, наша мечта сбылась. Мы приехали.
The petroleum spa resort in the oil-rich Caucasus country is a draw for visitors despite its proximity to Nagorno-Karabakh, a region disputed between Azerbaijan and Armenia in a long-running armed conflict. After 10 days of bathing in crude oil, Sophia says she now feels much better and has even reduced her medication for the polyarthritis that she has had for 12 years.
У меня ревматоидный полиартрит, я уже болею 12 лет. И вот благодаря природе, природным источникам, нефти, сероводороду, грязевым ваннам, я себя чувствую очень хорошо.
Azerbaijan's vast oil deposits were discovered in the mid-19th century, making what was at the time part of the Russian Empire one of the first places in the world to start commercial oil production. Oil exports to markets all over the world are the largest sector of Azerbaijan's economy, but the crude that comes from subsoil reservoirs in Naftalan is not suitable for commercial use. Instead, the local oil is used to cure muscular, skin and bone conditions, as well as gynecological and neurological problems. The small town of Naftalan, some 185 miles from the capital Baku, became a popular health resort for Soviet citizens in the 1920s. SpaceX carries out its first commercial launch with its Falcon Heavy rocket, tasked with placing a Saudi satellite in orbit. The rocket's 3 boosters detached from the Falcon Heavy and for the first time successfully landed, to a roar of approval from the crowd. When we come back, traditional comics thrive amid the world of digital technology. Eagle News Washington, D.C. will return shortly. This is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. I am Rose Papa Angeles. Who said comics are a thing of the past? Definitely not as they gain popularity in this time of digital technology. Eagle News correspondent Mio Acenas takes us to the amazing Comic-Con Aloha, where comic enthusiasts shares with us why comic is so in.
Back in 2017, Eagle News interviewed Charles Whitesell, a comic book dealer from Honolulu. We asked him about the future of the old-fashioned comics in the digital age. Back then, and even now, 2 years later, he doesn't appear to be worried, and his business is showing no signs of slowing down.
It's still going really strong, thanks to the movies, common people are exposed to superheroes more. I got people coming in asking for Captain Marvel stuff. 3-4 years ago, the common person didn't know who Captain Marvel was, or that Captain Marvel is now a female instead of a male. Old collector comics are still going up in value every year. There's record sales for Amazing Spider-Man #1, Amazing Fantasy 15. So the collectorship is still there as well too. And we're seeing that some of the more offbeat characters are becoming popular now as well too, which is a good thing for the comic industry.
At this year's Amazing Comic-Con Aloha, We asked the same question to both exhibitors and visitors alike. One of them was Daniel Way, a comic writer visiting Hawaii, who believes that the movie industry is actually helping generate more public interest in comic books.
I'd say that it's helping in that it raises the profile of these comic book properties. Print publishing is really supported by collectors, whereas folks that just see the movies, they're just consuming it as entertainment. There's no collectability. And even people that read digital comics, they fall into that same category. A bunch of files on your computer isn't a collection. You can't get a computer file signed by the creators that worked on it. So there's always going to be that facet of comics.
Michael, a Hawaii-based filmmaker, shares a similar opinion on a positive future for the comics.
So I don't think comic books are going to go away. They've been around for 100 years. Obviously now superheroes are in the mainstream, but I see the superhero films and the comics as two separate things. Superhero movies are a genre, comic books are a medium, so I don't think comics are ever going to go away. And I think that the movies do help, help bring in new fans, so I think they both help each other out.
I like owning them, so yes, I feel they have a future because I'm like a collector of things, so I just have a lot, so I enjoy them. I normally prefer comic books because they have like more of a story in them, and I prefer art, so.
I love comic books. I don't think that love is going to die anytime soon. Where there's a will, there's a way. Life will find a way. Comic books will find a way to survive. I love it.
And what about those who wish to pursue a future in the comic book industry, whether an artist, writer, or business owner? These experts emphasize on marketing yourself and your products, as well as going back to the basics.
Advice is nonetheless good advice. It's just produce work. You can get a lot more eyeballs if you put your stuff online, but where you're going to have the most conversion is at conventions like this, and so you're going to have an actual physical thing for people to buy or even look at. The odds of them stopping by to look at a screen is pretty slim. But yeah, just get your work out there. If nothing else, to just purge all the bad amateur ideas so that you're kind of ready when the opportunity to make a career of it presents itself.
If you want to learn how to draw, or with anything, photography, anything, you must start analog, because there's certain things you can do in analog that you don't get when you're working in digital. For instance, like if I'm sculpting something in clay, I can be a better sculptor if I can feel the clay and see how the clay moves versus doing it digitally in ZBrush. So I think that for younger kids, if you're really serious about learning your craft, learn how the masters did it. Start on paper, start with clay, start with an actual camera. And then as you go into digital, learn how you can use the foundation to make your artwork better.
I tell people comics basically are for reading and enjoying. A lot of times people get into the collecting part, and that's great if you want to do it, but if you buy a comic, read it and enjoy it. That's what comics are made for. That's what the artists draw them for. That's what the writers do them for. So find something that you like, something that appeals to you, be it a character, be it an artist, be it a writer, and buy them and enjoy them and read them.